Well, he seems to get the most kind. Here, look.
Okay. Oh, hey, it started broadcasting.
It is?
I think so.
Here, I'll sit. Look. Here. Good boy. Here, you can put your head.
Good to see you, Earl.
Bye, Earl.
He's up. Everyone see how Samara's lying down? You were always sleeping except for
you guys are on.
All right.
Cool.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
I'll introduce myself. My name is Aisha Mehta, and I am a graduate student at the Graduate School of Social Work at the University of Denver. I'm joined here by Phil and Jeff, who will introduce themselves next. So Phil, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm glad to. Hi, everyone. I'm glad you could join us. I have Samara here who wanted to participate tonight as well. Normally, she's out playing with her two cousins that are quarantined with her. But tonight she decided to join us here. My name is Phil Tedeschi. I'm a professor and a social worker and the executive director of the Institute for Human-Animal Connection. And it's nice to see you here. Jeff, I'll hand it off to you.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeff Fink. This is Earl Fink. We're here with Go Fetch Wellness. Trying to keep a dog in a frame is very difficult. I'm pulling out all the stops right now with his one of his favorite bears. But yeah, we're looking forward to talking and just sharing different perspectives, but really sharing about mental illness, mental health, especially during the current crisis. And so I'm really glad to be here with my good friends at the Institute for Human-Animal Connection.
Great.
Great to be joining you, Jeff.
Great. So hi, Denise. I just saw that you were here. So hello. So I have a couple questions for you guys just to get us started. I was wondering if, Jeff, you could tell us a little bit more about Go Fetch Wellness.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why that is ringing. This is.
That's because Earl has got on, and now Earl's so popular.
All right. Sorry, that was weird. When you turn all the things off on your computer, I'm frozen.
Well, while you're frozen, Jeff, I just wanted to say hello to my great colleague, Maria Jose from Costa Rica. Hola. It's great to hear from you. And I think if you can, you should post a picture of your new baby in the chat.
Hola, Maria. I love Costa Rica. It's literally my favorite place. And just beautiful, beautiful country, beautiful people. But so yeah, sorry about the technical difficulty. I guess that's part of doing these. But yeah, Go Fetch Wellness was an organization that Earl and I started when he came into my life almost 8 years ago. And we have helped address mental health in communities through the human-animal connection. So in other words, we harness people's love for their pets as a way to talk about and bring up a very difficult subject of mental illness. So we talk, we advocate for connection and compassion with each other, but we also believe that animals can play a huge role in treatment as part of a whole person approach to treatment. So Earl and I have done a lot over the years, from work with individuals to run groups, but we really love speaking and sharing our message on large platforms, because what we find is that if I share parts of my story and my struggle with over 2 decades of severe persistent mental illness, severe depression and anxiety, I find that there's someone out there that might be able to relate to that story. And there might be someone else out there that's looking to potentially add an animal to their life. So I like to do what I can so others suffer less. So we've been doing this for a long time. Earl is really he's the face of the of the organization, but it's about all animals. And so we really value our time, especially when we get to spend time with those at Denver School of Social Work, because I really think that social work is a wonderful profession where people look at the whole person when they're looking to make a treatment plan for someone. And Earl won't say anything quite yet. We'll see if we can get him to talk by the end.
I didn't realize he was so shy.
He's just not comfortable, apparently.
We have some participants from all over the world, from our friends from Puerto Rico, Liliana, hi. And then we also have our great colleague, Marissa Martino, who's an human-animal connection relationship expert who's here tonight. So it's going to be a great conversation. Many others that are checking in here. So Isha, I'm going to come put this back to you,
Yeah.
and have you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing, who you are, and how animals have been a part of your life before we get started.
Yeah, for sure. Let me try to get, let me know if you can see my dog, Dragon. Dragon.
A little lower, maybe just a little lower. Yep. There's
Dragon.
Dragon.
Dragon. Yeah, he's sleeping. That's what he does these days with the quarantine. He kind of just sleeps. But anyway, so Dragon is my seeing eye dog. I got him from the Seeing Eye in Morristown, New Jersey back in 2015. So we're coming up to 7 years of partnership, and he's my lifeline. He's my everything. So he comes to class with me at GSSW. I'm a grad student, like I said earlier, and I am pursuing my licensed clinical social worker license, so I can become a clinician and work with people that are struggling with trauma disorders and eating disorders. So that's a little bit about me.
Great. What a great focus.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's super. And what made you choose social work as a field to pursue that through?
Yeah, so I have friends that are licensed clinical social workers, and I, through talking to them, realized how much social work kind of embodies the whole person. So it's not like with psychology where you're just focusing on the mind, but what I truly love about social work is how you work on the whole person. So you're looking at different systems that are affecting the person. You're looking at their socioeconomic status, you're looking at their home life, you're looking at their mental health. You're looking at all of these factors that kind of contribute to what is going on with that person or that group, or that like on a macro level, that community. So that's what really drew me to social work, was just taking that big picture, and then having the ability to zoom in on different levels to see how to help a person, system, or group.
Oh, that's a great response. Yeah, that's what drew me to social work as well. I wanted to just acknowledge we have folks from really all over, and one of the amazing things about human-animal connection is that it is such a universal story. Not every animal necessarily sleeps on our bed or gets birthday gifts, 7 birthday gifts a year, like most dogs in the United States. Here's Samara to say hello. She is not exactly a lap dog, but she likes to think she is. But we have folks right on now from Mexico, from New York, from Fort Collins, from Philadelphia, and our programs at the University of Denver, the School of Social Work. We have students now on every continent in the world except for Antarctica. So if you want to join from Antarctica, then we would have be able to say we had the whole planet. But we have students who have worked in this area who are doing just amazing work all over the world, and we welcome you all to that. I just thought I maybe will tell you just briefly a little bit about our Institute for Human-Animal Connection. We have been around since 2005, and we originally started Tamara's trying to adjust her spot on my lap. We originally started at the bequest of students who really were interested in how animals contributed to human health, in particular in clinical dimensions. But since then, there's many other dimensions that have become important to our study and our work at the Institute for Human Animal Connection. And so what we have there is a terminal degree in social work that allows somebody to develop. I think Samara is about to say something. Hang on, there we go. So I think the most exciting things about our programs is it allows somebody to get a master's degree or a terminal degree in social work and add into it a specialization in human animal connection. But we've now become really interested in other dimensions of the human animal connection, including the role that pets play in communities, which is a big part of our discussion tonight. And then also we've started to study conservation social work, or what we sometimes refer to as One Health. And One Health is really the intersection between people, animals, and the environment, and studying how they're interconnected. So maybe that'll come up as well, but that's a big part of us understanding the origins of the current crisis we're in and beginning to rethink our relationship with the living planet. So that's a little bit about the Institute. You can certainly find out more about us if you would like at our Institute, and you can search under Institute for Human Animal Connection, or if you would like, you can look at du.edu/human animal connection, and you'll find our website, and that'll tell you a lot more about our academic programs and all the other stuff we're up to. So I'll hand it back to you, Isha.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for that introduction, you two. I just wanted to say, if any of you guys have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat and we will answer your questions. But for now, I have a question for Jeff. My question for you is, I know that you've had some severe struggles with depression and anxiety, and I'm wondering how those experiences have helped you kind of prepare for this COVID-19 situation and the social or physical distancing. And also wondering too, if you have any tips for people that are really struggling with that right now.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Normally I'm petting Earl to keep me calm when I'm talking, but I have Earl's horse right now. I'm gonna see if this helps. We
like all animals here, Jeff.
We like all animals. This is one of Earl's nicest toys, and I'm surprised it's not luring him up here. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone was ever prepared for what happened with COVID-19, and I didn't imagine our economies all over the world shutting down, schools closing, the unemployment, what it is now, which I think is out of the Great Depression or exceeds, I don't know all the statistics. I try not to watch the news too frequently because of its effect on my anxiety and depression. But what the similarities with what people are experiencing now, which is, we refer to it as social distancing in terms of keeping away from another human, but a lot of people call it social isolation because they're stuck at their homes. Maybe their home is not a good place to be stuck. Maybe it's a tiny little box like what I lived in when I lived in New York City. And so maybe, it's not like, oh, you're stuck at your homes and it's great. People are stuck at their homes. They're losing their jobs. They're having to teach their families while they're working. And there's just so many ramifications of this. But what people are experiencing now is something I've experienced through many, many years of my life. So when I experience a bout of depression, for lack of a better description, I could be sick for 2, 3, 4 years, where the better part of that time period I'm not able to function. So I'm definitely socially isolated because it's very difficult to be able to connect with others. When one of my gifts is being able to speak, and I love to make people laugh, and I like to talk to people, and I like to help people, but I can't do any of that when I'm not well. And so I have to figure out, how do I survive when it's just me? And 8 years ago almost is when Earl came into my life. So how do we survive together? And what I realize is, I really find value in connections with people that I don't know, so strangers. So things like, you know, walking, taking a hike in the woods. I love to get into some kind of woods or some kind of nature every day. I need it. And with Earl, it's easier to connect with others because we'll be walking, and he attracts attention, especially to dog lovers. Now, he also grins, a huge grin when he's excited, and he shows all his teeth. So that may attract some skepticism from others that have never seen that. But either way, it's a conversation starter. And so what I would say in terms of one tip would be, you can still get outside. Hopefully you can still walk around if it's safe to do that. Smile at strangers. If you have a mask on, you can use your hands and wave. You can talk to people, certainly not close, but there's ways to still stay connected with others where it might be different from, going to class or going into the work environment or going out to eat with someone. So I think that the connection piece is something that I would really encourage people to try to stay connected as much as possible. Other things that people do now, especially an event like this, where now you're connected through video, through audio, you can see questions, you can share the experience with others. Certainly an animal, and for me a dog, has helped me tremendously during these dark times. We've just now are coming out of what has been a really difficult last year and a half at least, where many days I don't want to live. I have the depressions I experience now are not, I don't go from okay to mild and kind of down. I go from okay to not functional. And so in those time periods, what I've found that's helped me get going day in and day out has been when someone's done something kind for me. There's been some compassion. Someone said, hey, I was just traveling in a van for 7 months and have yet to share a lot of that story. I wanted to see how people experience mental illness around the Western US. And when you're in a van, that's your home, but you don't really have a home. So finding a place to sleep safely and legally is difficult. So when people have offered to simply park in front of their house, or, hey, we're having a meal, would you like to join us? Those acts of kindness for others can help you feel better, but also really help keep people going and keep people alive. So these are simple things that, those that are listening, you can try still, whether it's COVID-19 or any other major catastrophe or virus. There's things you can still do. And certainly if you have an animal that walks, on a leash, like a dog or a cat, or I've seen a lot of different variations of other species, if they like other people, you can have that as an opportunity to have a conversation with someone. So, I think that that we're all, we hear it all the time, we're all in this together. And, it's not always that way, because when you see a group of people socially distanced sitting out at their house and you're completely by yourself and walking and depressed and crying, you don't feel like you're in it together. But when you connect with a stranger, or you share this compassion and kindness, you really you're there for someone else. And I can't reiterate how powerful that is, especially for those that are really struggling right now from a mental health standpoint.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jeff. That's so important to, as we're all going through this together, but in our own separate little bubbles, it's so important to stay connected and kind of reaching out to people that that are struggling. Like, I too feel so grateful when somebody kind of reaches out to me to say, hey, how's it going? I know you've been struggling, or something like that. So I think it's super important, as you were saying, to reach out to people and just let them know that you're there. So we have a couple questions. One of the earlier questions that we got was from me, and I think it was something like, what will it be like working as a clinician, as a professional with Dragon as my seeing eye dog? That's a great question. I can't remember who asked that, but thank you for asking that question, because that is a question that I have been trying to figure out the last couple months. Luckily, graduation is still a year away, so I have some time to figure that out. But kind of where I see Dragon and his role in all of this is, if he chooses to and gives his consent to want to do this, I would love for him to be in sessions with me as I am working with another client. I find that his presence for me just keeps me calm and grounded. I struggle with the dissociative disorder because of trauma. And for me, I dissociate a lot. And what Dragon does for me is that he keeps me in the present moment. And I've seen him do that for so many other people as well, maybe who aren't struggling with the dissociative disorder, but anybody who's struggling, he kind of goes up to them and snuggles with them or brings them a toy, and they're kind of instantly back into their bodies, back into the present moment. So depending on where Dragon's at in the next couple years, if he chooses to want to work with me with that, then hopefully that'll be something that we could do together. Yeah, so thank you for asking that question. And Phil, I think there was a question in there for you, but I didn't quite catch it. I think it's in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Isha. I see that question. Before I answer that question, though, there's a suggestion to Earl that he maybe consider a toy duck or monkey, especially the plush toys is maybe the way to go. So I don't know. Maybe we should ask Earl whether he would like a plush duck or monkey.
Or both.
Definitely, I will answer for him. He would definitely like it for the first little bit, and then he would probably put it away with all his thousands of other toys. But he will join us in a second. He's really relaxing under the fan right now. I think it got too hot, the two of us together. So yeah. He's now separated in the cooling zone.
Well, yeah. You know, one of the things, speaking of dogs relaxing at your feet, or a cat who's lounging on your couch, you know, one of the things that I've done this last year, and it speaks to the question that's being asked of me. We have a question from Ava about kind of where the research is headed in human-animal bond or human-animal intervention work. And specifically, she was interested in addiction. This last year, I just published a book on the role that animals play in trauma recovery. And I think you were getting at that, Isha, in a very useful way. One of the most important takeaways from this year of research and helping generate this new book called Transforming Trauma was the idea of what's called neuroceptive safety. And neuroceptive safety would suggest that our bodies are biologically or hardwired to gather information about the safety and well-being of the environment that we're in at any given moment. And the information that's most relevant to whether or not you're safe and whether or not your well-being is in fact okay comes from other living beings or other living systems immediately in your environment. And so even though somebody could, you know, we could read an email that, and somebody could say like, oh, you're perfectly fine and you're safe, but that information doesn't inform us in the same way that other living beings do. So if we're looking at Jeff with Earl sprawled across his couch, looking pretty cash and pretty chill, that information, especially when we're in physical contact, that allows us to co-regulate and allows us to touch them and to see whether their breathing is normal and whether or not they appear to be truly relaxed, like you described Dragon, Isha. That information actually informs our own system about the relevance of our own safety and well-being. And it's one of the big, probably, hypotheses behind why pet keeping might be so completely relevant during this period of time where we've seen now animal shelters emptied nearly and lots of fostering going on and people interested in having animals in their lives, is that the presence of another safe animal allows us to gauge our own sense of well-being. Now that doesn't mean that's a perfect solution. There was an interesting question here, who was saying she's stuck in an apartment with a dog and that's not very easy because she doesn't have a yard and that it makes her feel cooped up and maybe depressed. So we can also recognize that when we're in circumstances where animal well-being might be jeopardized or challenged, or where an animal might be distressed. I've heard you talk about this week, Isha, about wishing you could have Dragon out more than you have. Sometimes those inform us about well-being as in addition. So I guess the way I would answer kind of where the research is headed for Ava's question is I think we're really looking at intersectionality between human animals and non-human animals and recognizing that we share a lot. We share our physiology and anatomy, and we also share our lives with a lot of animals. And we also share the planet. And this is a time where planetary health and ecological system health are becoming much more relevant to our discussions about about quality of life and how ultimately we proceed as part of the planet system. Animals inform us in that way every day. Those people who live with animals are gathering that information, often pre-consciously, but in ways that you may not always form it as a complete thought, but that it's impacting your sense of well-being.
That's great. Yeah.
We have a question for me. I'll just read it out loud. This is from Allison. Do you know off the top of your head if there are empirical benefits to virtual animal interaction that could be highlighted in presenting this event to college students? What a great question, and probably it's bigger than college students for sure. And I'll open this up to Jeff and Isha, your thoughts on this. My experience, so I'm teaching right now virtually, and normally these are classes I would teach in person and we'd have animals in class. And so we're exploring and using kind of innovation. Isha is actually in one of those classes. So she's part of trying to innovate. How do we actually demonstrate the power of the human animal connection virtually? And there are many ways that we do that, right? Where we would have somebody who might share pictures, we're capturing those images, we're actually having even students who are sharing animals virtually and learning together with each other. We don't necessarily know how well animals use virtual communication. We know that some dogs can actually see TV screens because of the increased pixelation on TVs. So you'll notice, if you've had dogs most of your life, you'll notice that in the last few years, they'll like look at the TV as though they're really seeing it, right? And recognizing an image. That's probably accurate, that they can actually see the images, but we don't know if they're able to use virtual communication like Zoom or Skype or things like that effectively. But I think one of the things that has happened in this time period is that we have shared interest, and that these animals are some of our most reliable relationships, and they're also some of our most durable connections during this period of time. And social support is literally the most critical dimension for human health. It's one of the reasons that as social workers, we always start by evaluating somebody's support system to determine how to help them the most. And that our animals are taking an oversized role in social support now than ever before. So I don't know, Isha, how would you answer that question or that thought?
I would say that, so all of my classes are obviously online now, and a lot of my friends are now doing classes from home and they're with their pets. And some feedback that I've heard from some friends is that seeing other people's pets have just brought them so much joy in this time of isolation. So I think that's one aspect that's pretty cool about virtual pets is like still being able to see other people's pets, but also that like bringing you joy yourself.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, our animals are like surprised. We're like home all the time now and in their business, but maybe they're enjoying it. Jeff, we have a great friend and colleague who's joined our chat, Louisa McCune, and she wants to ask you a question around what's been your most successful method for reaching others. She also is interested in this broader question around have we ever considered intersectionality between farm animal welfare and humans as part of my institute? And so why don't we get to you first, and then I'll go second.
Yeah, I like. Well, I want to really quickly comment and add when what Isha was saying made me think of something. When you were saying like you're having the Zoom meetings with your colleagues, with other students, and there's a cat crossing paths or a dog on someone's lap. I think this is also happening in the working world, in the corporate world with the meetings, and there's interruptions and animals and children. And what I think is another thing that does is it helps humanize the person. It helps humanize the student that you're talking to. Now you're saying,
Totally.
oh, I mean, obviously in at this school, or at least within the Institute, you would think they're already animal lovers, but it just gives them it helps you feel more comfortable and safe sharing. And I think it strengthens relationships. So when we do go back to work and we're back, it's gives someone to ask, hey, what about Fluffy? What about, Earl? What about Dragon? What about Samara? And it's like, it just adds to the conversation piece. But in terms of, what's my most effective way to reach people? So over the years, I've done different things, and lately, probably in the last several years, I've certainly gotten more open about my own struggles and about mental health, or talking to literally anyone that cross our path. A lot of my Instagram followers are students that where I'll show up on a campus with Earl, and oh my gosh, can we pet your dog? And I'll say, yeah, yes, you can pet him, but take out your phones, because everyone seems to have one now. And, find us on Instagram and see what Earl does in the world. And, oh, what's that? Well, it's all about pets and mental health. So pets is something people recognize. I like to call them companions. And mental health is certainly something that, we all experience to some degree. And so what that does is, so Earl is definitely my most effective method. But he's not doing the talking, so I have to be able to interject something. So that's the thing. So it's like, hey, what about that's so cool, or I've experienced depression, or my mom struggled, or I grew up with a father that had challenges with addiction and bipolar disorder, whatever it is. I hear stories all the time. So I think it's both the human and the animal that has to participate. And so one thing that here, look, let's show your bandana. One thing that I made that I never, I've been haven't really talked about this too much, is a bandana, and it says, "Animals change lives. Ask us how, and go fetch wellness." So the idea of this is for someone that doesn't speak about mental health to everybody like I do. You could have that on a dog. You could be walking a shelter dog and have the bandana on them, and someone may ask you about the bandana, and all you have to say is, it's about pets and mental health. And what I'm trying to do is show people that simply saying that can open up wonderful conversations and connections. And so I think, work with your animal. Obviously, you've got to have a dog or another animal that's out and about, that enjoys interactions with others, that it's safe. But if you do have that, and you want to contribute to a movement behind, taking away the stigma of mental illness and doing what you can to educate others, give it a shot. Try to say something. Hey, this is my dog Earl, and we really like this, this nonprofit Go Fetch Wellness, or we believe in the power of animals and to help us with mental health. And it's just amazing what happens there. And now these have been turned into face masks because, we're petting dogs less. So it's something that can go over an actual good mask and and start conversations. So
Perfect, Jeff.
thanks for that question.
You know, I have this question, Isha, from our colleague Luisa to me about farm animals and considering the intersectionality between farm animal welfare and humans.
Mm.
And I really appreciate that question. We also have a few other really good questions we should get to. But I wanted to just mention, you know, that one of this kind of looming discussions that need to happen, kind of especially during this time where we know that maybe the vector point or origins of this particular virus comes from our interaction and at times callous treatment of other non-human animals. And the concept of intersectionality refers to really this question around whether there's parallels or similarities or conditions under which a non-human animal and a human might experience the world the same way. If we think about farm animals in so many ways, you know, being often silenced and not having a voice or not having positionality to protect themselves, and are often used in very consumptive and at times exploitive ways, often with a lot of callousness. I think one of the things, the biggest intersectional issue is the question of whether or not cruelty is with or without consequences. And one of the things that we teach at within our institute is that cruelty towards living systems is never without consequences, that it's never going to be neutral. And that would include not just animals, but even other living systems, our ecological systems, our water systems, and our air and our forests and our biodiversity in general. So these are important questions for us to bring into this broader discussion. And I really appreciate the question. Farm animals are highly sentient. They're domesticated. They have lives not unlike our own, where they care for their children and wonder about the future and want to have their own lives respected. And I think this is a time when we get that, right? When we should be sensitized to the fact that these are areas that we share with other non-human animals and appreciate that recognition. Should we get to some of the other questions, Isha?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Do you want me to read through some of them, or do you have those?
If you could read through them, that'd be great.
Okay. So let's see here. So one of the questions is from Stephanie, and she's saying, Phil, your comment about neuroceptive safety is so interesting based on some of the work that they're doing, that what they are doing is they've found that doing work with trauma survivors and horses brings up this awareness that they've heard from the women that they feel safe in a group. How much do you think neuroceptive safety could be a foundation for psychological safety? Absolutely, that is right at the heart of it. So I'll open this up for Jeff, you and Isha to feel free to jump in here. You know, one of the courses I teach over the last decade has been in East Africa, where we have the opportunity to see animals in the amazing communities and beautiful savannas of many of the largest parks in the world. And one of the things you see there is that the group connectedness between other animals informs them of well-being. They're often, for example, have sentries or parts of the herd that are intentionally designed to capture information about threat. In our society, human beings have become rather lazy communicators with each other about senses of well-being. We only use words and spoken and written words, but often we're also good at misusing words. So somebody asks us how we're doing, and we go, oh, I'm fine, but we don't really feel fine. We're not really doing so well, and we're not really using that information. So it doesn't surprise me that, you know, your clients would identify the fact that in the presence of other women who are trying to work on, how to feel safe in this particular world, especially with the prevalence of violence, gender violence directed at women, things like that, that they would feel safer in the presence of women looking out for them and protecting them. And neuroceptive safety intentionally is referencing this polyvagal theory, this sense that our nervous system informs our entire bodies, and as a result, informs that in a way that allows us to function in different ways, sometimes by relaxing and other times by responding, right, to threat or to risks. So it makes perfect sense, exactly what you're saying. We also have a question from Fern. This is a question about virtual human-animal connection. She works in oncology at the University of Pennsylvania, is using a virtual reality as distraction therapy for patients and caregivers. Perhaps virtual reality experience with animals as content would be a great study relating to stress relief prior to and or after cancer treatment. Fascinating idea. Any thoughts on that, Jeff or Isha?
So that's these are some very tough questions. I haven't really delved into virtual reality in animals. I mean, the only more simplistic thought I have is I just based on the things that I learned, I got a certificate in there, and in the Institute for Human Animal Connection has an online course called Animals and Human Health. I believe that's the correct title.
Yep.
And I learned a lot in that course. And one of the things I learned, I've taken with me, especially when I visit senior living centers, and they are talking to me about adding more dogs. How do we get dogs coming in? And you're also dealing with people that are pretty fragile. And we learned that the hard way when Earl was a puppy and tried to take the tennis ball from the bottom of the walker. He was definitely not at his fully trained self yet. And, they're fragile people, and he's a big dog. And so what I learned is the virtual reality, or like watching animals through screens and stuff. I recommend it and have seen it implemented where there's now fish tanks, and you see this now in some waiting rooms at doctors' offices, and just looking at the fish, it keeps you calm. You're focusing on something, a living being, and it's moving through the water and the flow. And so I think that there certainly has to be something behind the ability to virtually connect. And I think that anything that we can do that can involve animals in that, I'm all for, and I can't wait to. I'd love to see the university study this. I don't think I'll be running a giant study, but I'd love to be part of it or read it when it's done. But yeah, that's
Jeff. You never know. That might be
it might be you one day.
Yeah, that could happen. One of the things that brings up are these broader questions of health, human health. And one of the things that I think we would, our great colleague, Aubrey Fine, has referred to interacting with animals, as, kind of a biological spa treatment, which I love that term, right? And what he's getting at, right, in your mind's eye, you might maybe imagining a cucumber peel and a mud wrap or something like that. But I think what he's getting at is the fact that interaction with living systems that are safe and nurturing and are just what we're watching Jeff doing right this very minute makes me feel more relaxed, for example. And that's the origins of animal-assisted interventions right there, with people like Boris Levinson, who used to sneak that very type of dog into his therapy session with children. Not because he thought they were going to help his clients, but because he wanted his dogs with him in therapy sessions. And then he would find himself doing things like getting out of his therapist chair and sitting on the floor with his clients and doing just what Jeff was doing, of petting and rhythmically touching this animal. And that started to demonstrate that there were changes in his clients, including talking more, being more approachable, being more trusting, more optimistic. And what you're looking at there, beyond those kind of observable behavioral outcomes, is you're looking at neurological changes, interpersonal neurological changes that are a feature of the neurotransmitters released into the body, in the brain, that affect our entire bodies. And so this question that's being asked about oncology treatment, we have reason to believe that the presence of a safe animal will do things like, for example, reduce the need for medication, pain medication, because that person is no longer experiencing the same level of stress or distress. So these questions are important for applications all the way across the human lifespan, and they're also all the way relevant all the way across social service systems from virtually every type of setting where people are in need. And addictions are a great example. Medical care is a great example. We have a question here about, have you had any experience with adolescents and younger children with attachment issues that find the human-animal bond effectively, specifically disorders like reactive attachment disorder and trauma, like developmental trauma, right? And this is a great question because what we know about developmental trauma is that it literally does affect the neurology, the development of the brain. That a child growing up in a traumatic environment, brain will develop differently than those who don't. And as a result, their capacity for relationship is impaired or impacted by that. So one of the evidence-based areas that we know animal-assisted interventions is in fact effective is in the work of attachment, developing healthy relationship and improving capacity for attachment in children who have developmental trauma as part of their story. So let's see, we have a couple of questions. I want to get to this one that Maria sent, and then I'll come back to another one because this one gets to an important question around animal well-being. And Maria is absolutely one of our best advocates for animals. In fact, I think the last time we visited her, she had a lot of animals living with her. Maria, if you're still on, tell us how many animals you and your family have in your care, in addition to your therapy dogs. But she's asking, what about therapy dogs as they are accustomed to socialize with their clients, going and visiting facilities and that sort of thing? They miss the action and are looking for getting it again. Now online, of course. Do they get depressed? What can we do to enrich the lives of the animals that are working animals, like your service dogs or therapy dogs? But what about just even, we could ask that question in a broader context to the animals, our companion animals too. How have you been enriching taking care of your animals during these times? And I'll open it up to the chat group. If you have some good suggestions, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, so for me and Dragon, he is obviously really used to working every day with me all the time. And now that can't happen, I've noticed that he's sleeping a lot more and just really bored and pretty down. So what I've been trying to do with him is, at the end of the day, playing a little game. So yesterday we played a game of hide and seek where I put a blanket over me, had him somewhere upstairs, and then called him to come. And he came running down, and his job is to try to get the blanket off of me. Well, find me first and then get the blanket off of me.
Okay.
And he loved it so much. I mean, tails wagging, happy, panting. I hadn't seen him that energized in a little while. So I would say coming up with little games to play with your pets and your companion animals is probably one way to keep them like entertained and keep you entertained. So
Maria is telling me she has 9 dogs and 4 cats.
Whoa!
So she's got a lot of enrichment work to do. Marissa Martina, if you're still on, I'd love to hear from your best, top 3 enrichment strategies. Jeff, what do you do to keep?
I was actually going to bring up Marissa as well, because she, I'm not sure where I heard about one of the strategies, but it's interesting. Isha and I were talking when we first met, and I found out about Dragon. I said, we shared that Earl is not working in the same capacity as he used to. He he's not joining me if I there's nowhere to go. But if you go to the grocery store, it's extremely difficult to try to keep your hands clean, keep a mask on, get the groceries, and then have a dog there on the other end of a leash. So we still get out all the time, but we were getting out to the same place doing the same hike, and I noticed he just stopped wanting to go, and he never, like, we would get out and he'd just sit there and he'd be like 3 football fields behind me, safely off the leash. And he, I was wondering, like, what is going on? So I started taking him every day. I've started to take him to different areas. I've taken him to different places to smell new things. And he's so used to traveling to different places that I can still do that within where I am in Atlanta, Georgia. So, and I let him swim, and I'll take him up to the lake. And so I'm fortunate to be able to do that. But when we can't leave the house, what I've done is I've, you can take like frozen berries and, freeze TREATSs, which I don't want to say because he's being so good right now, and you hide them in the backyard. That's where I was thinking of Marissa, that like scent games and trying to keep his brain occupied. And he loves FOOD, so he's very driven by that. And so that was like a really fun new game for him. And really, sometimes I break down and let someone pet him. It's a very controlled environment. There'll be hand sanitizer, face mask, and everything, but he just is dying so much to interact with others. So when he's not working, I let him be like a therapy dog, where I'm sharing his love with other people, and he loves it as well. So he'll get a few pets every now and then, but yeah, it's changing up their routine as much as possible.
Mhm.
One thing I'll throw out there just as a suggestion, we have this great colleague who's a friend of our institute, Mark Beckoff, whose specialization, really has over the years been the emotional and cognitive lives of animals. If you can see this book called Unleashing Your Dog, a field guide to giving your canine compassion the best life possible. I love this little book in part because it really goes through what we know a lot about in terms of what dogs utilize in terms of their capabilities. Gives you some great tools for incentivizing them and at least respecting the things that they would like to do the most, and giving them some opportunity. We actually just observed that because Earl had something busy that he had to go do. It looked really important to me. But Jeff just let him go because clearly it was something urgent.
Well, there's too many animal experts probably on this call that I didn't want anyone to think I was keeping him distressed by petting him constantly, so he stayed in position. So yeah, now he wanted to jump up, and now he has, it looks like a shoe in his mouth, and he's parading around the room, but no one. And now he's asleep. So all of that in a matter of seconds.
So we had a question. We're going to probably go for maybe like just 10 more minutes or so, because we could do this for a long time. I think this is all, if you're like me, and I have a feeling you are, we're the people who never get invited back to a dinner party because all we can talk about is this topic. And but when we find each other, we can go all day and all night. But we had a question that maybe I'll start, with Isha, with you, and ask you a little bit about kind of your motivation. This is from Elise, who is asking, how can we implement training and knowledge in more schools of social work? So if you wouldn't mind, tell us about, kind of how this came to your awareness and how social work and your animal interests fit together. And then I can talk a little bit about how we got started here, but we have a few more questions and then we'll start maybe heading towards the end zone.
Yeah. So
what are you doing now too? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing as in your graduate studies.
Yeah, so right now I'm in my foundation year at GSSW, so my first year of classes, and I also have the honor of interning with IHAC, which has been really, really cool, learning about One Health and learning about just the way that human and animals connect that goes beyond just companionship. So that's been really fascinating to learn. And I would say, like, when I was looking for grad schools, I had found out that DU had something like iHack. So actually that was one of the reasons that I came to DU, was because of iHack. So you guys got me.
We're so glad. We're actually the ones honored to have you. Aisha's
Aw.
already made a big impact on our team and on our program. So, the thing that I would say about that question would be to expand our interest in social justice to include non-human animals, so that I talk about it as an issue of interspecies justice. And if there's anything that we've learned, I have a very busy dog under my desk right at the moment. You can probably hear her tail hitting all of the furniture. I have a 9-month-old puppy here. Oh, she even plays guitar with her tail. Come on. Well, I don't know if you can see her there. She's a black dog. It's very hard to see black dogs in dark rooms. Anyways, yeah, I think that's the really big story, would be, whether or not we, experience this question around the social sciences and our question around people and our connection to each other through the lens of just human relationship, or broader than that. And social workers use this concept of person and environment to define our primary theory. And ironically, historically, that hasn't always meant living environment, but more built environment. And I think right now what we're realizing is just the opposite, is that these are questions that should be all of our work, right? Would be to rethink how we connect to other living beings and what the importance of that would be. What would it be like to be on the planet without other non-human animals? And as we study the bigger concepts of One Health and the land ethics and these intersectional considerations and planetary health issues, what we realize is that we're at risk of relational poverty that would exist just by only thinking of humans as the only important beings. And so, for those of you who are social workers, or that question who might come from a social work educator, I think what you're going to find is that social work is ready to be changed. It's already one of the grand challenges, looking at these areas of our connection to the living world. And so these are opportunities. It's been a very important program for GSSW and continues to be driven by students themselves who come with very refined ideas about how these fit into their work that they want to do. And it happens on every level, on miniature levels, or what we kind of call micro levels, right? Like the animals that are living right at the moment under my desk. And living in your homes on a scale that's unheard of, right? In terms of mental health care. Jeff brings up this point around the role that animals can play in our mental health care. But imagine if animals disappeared tomorrow, like our companion animals weren't in our lives. What would happen to the collective human health of the United States, for example, or North America? But probably you could even apply that in a broader context. I think what we're going to find is that, these are some of the biggest mental health systems that we have, on the scale of 80 million or more owned dogs and more owned cats than dogs. Those animals just alone, the role that they play in our lives is just immense. So these are really fantastic questions. The opportunity to think about this and begin adding these to your own areas of specialization, but also just to realize that we can appreciate them in our own lives and families. These are ways to raise our families, to do better parenting, to examine what kind of relationships we want in, what kinds of ways to treat another are often interpersonal questions around how we treat our companion animals. Allison says here in her comments, and she's been working from home, she started walking her dog every morning, having her dog there with her as she's doing her telehealth and her counseling work, that sort of thing. And that she's using toys and hiding toys and puzzles as a way of keeping her dog interested. that's a fantastic example, though, right, of the fact that just our changed schedules has reminded us these animals are very important parts of our lives. Maria is also adding in enrichment's a must, contact with kids, contact with people, things like that. So one of the ways that you can do that is through games. Usually, I love your game. Hide and seek is one of Samara's favorites too. What the Fluff Challenge has been questioned around its ethics. That's where you try to disappear in front of your dog by holding a blanket up and then jumping out of the way and hiding. But you could do a lot of games, and games are one of the ways that most mammals actually recover from stress. Play, in fact, is critical. Rumble play, all kinds of play help us with our self-regulation, sense of well-being and happiness, things like that. We have a couple more questions, and then I'm going to wrap up here. Suggest we wrap up and get final comments from Isha and Jeff. Sarah is asking, hi, Sarah. That working animals will also have to readjust when things open back up. How, Isha, could you speak to that? Or Jeff, how are you going to get Dragon ready to go once you are allowed back out into everyday life?
I think for me, kind of just taking it slow. So not overwhelming him with okay, today we're going to go to Boulder on the bus and take 3 light rails, because I think that would probably be a little overwhelming for me as well, going from not really having a lot of stimulation on buses to then, taking 5 buses in a light rail going somewhere. So I think my idea for going back into the world is probably just taking it slow and not overwhelming him with everything all at once.
Good idea, step by step. So I like that. I think I'm going to need that too as well.
Yeah.
Now that my commute is 5 feet from my bedroom to my office.
Oh, it's great.
It's going to take I need new driving lessons, I think. So, Jeff, what about you? How are you going to prepare for that?
Yeah, I think, I've prepared for it already, because in his life with me, there's been, like I said, a lot of times that I've been taken out of the world for longer periods. So if I'm taken out of the world, so is my service dog. So is the times that we're going out, the levels of interaction, the trips we're taking, the trips to the grocery or the wherever, doing anything. And so what I've learned is when we get back into that, I have to be really patient with Earl. He may tire easier. He may get stressed a little bit easier. I have to really watch that and see that. And he's also getting older. So I need to make sure to kind of look out for his interests, his schedule, focusing on him just as much as me wanting and needing him with me. So taking it slow is part of that. And I think that what we do now every day has been the same, whether I'm sick or well, or I'm out and about and traveling or not, as we still get outside and get our time together. So to always include the activities that they've grown accustomed to doing. So if you're playing hide and go seek, to stop it all of a sudden and weeks go by and there's no hide and go seek, I think it's probably good to kind of keep the things going. Hey, Earl, you want to come up here one more time? But I do want to say there was a few things I want to just kind of come back to, and this could be part of my wrap up as well. But with regards to the mental illness that we're seeing and the increase of that, and then the great points y'all have made about kind of where our animals play a role nationally, globally, the number of pets in people's homes. I think that I like to try to simplify things a lot more. Treatment was always so complex for me, and I didn't respond well to traditional medical treatments. So that's, therapy and medications. And so I've had to suffer for a long time. And I think that something I really want to share is how it doesn't have to be complex. People are like, oh, is Go Fetch Wellness an organization that places dogs, or you only work with service dogs, or you only work with veterans, or you do, do you do therapy dogs in hospitals? No, I would love to work with everybody. And it's not about any of that. What it's about is it's about harnessing your love and your connection with your pet to connect with other humans, to have this. We see this kindness, and I know I've mentioned this before, and I'll continue to mention it. Kindness, connection, compassion. How valuable that can be to help treat mental illness, to treat anxiety, to treat depression, to save lives, to keep people alive when they're ready to give up. So these are things that I find it's just so important for me to share that. And I want to share to an audience that's much broader than those that are already tuned into the message. So I really like universities because they're not just like a psychiatric treatment center. They're multifaceted, and social work isn't just focused on mental illness. There's lots of different whole person health focuses for that. So I think that our goal is to really reach a broader audience. So we're really focusing on the workplace and on people, and helping them engage in real conversations with others. And if we do that with their love for their animal, so many more people can say, hey, I remember during COVID when I was stuck at home and having that dog there, that really helped me. And my relationship, my partner and I were at each other's throats, and it was so hard to be at home. And so just having that time with my dog, like, I can see what you're talking about. I can see how you can feel, how it's not just about feeling calmer. And my dog is just a dog, or I have a sugar glider, or a chicken, or a horse, or a guinea pig, or a cat, or any number of animals out there. So don't be discouraged if your dog isn't doing backflips or learning 100 tricks, or isn't the top therapy dog in the hospital, or isn't an amazing service dog with the best training possible. Just love your animal, share that love with others, and you'll save lives.
That's an awesome message, Jeff. Thank you. Yeah, this dog right here, Amani, managed to eat the entire plate of cookies from our table the other night.
Ooh, Amani.
But we still love her, even though we were very jealous that she got pretty much all the cookies all in one spot.
She looks like she's just, not feeling that guilty about it either. She's pretty happy.
No, she's still part of the family. We haven't, nobody in our family lives in the proverbial doghouse, even if you're a dog. So,
Amani, next time you're gonna have to make the cookies.
That's right. Isha, what about you? How would you wrap up or summarize kind of your experience and some of these broader discussions about the significance of animals during this time and our well-being?
Yeah. I guess I would have to say that reciprocity between ourselves and our animals is super important. So just paying attention to what your animal needs and what you need, and kind of just making sure that both parties are getting what they're needing, and not kind of like, so for me, sometimes I find myself wanting to play with Dragon or take him out for a really long walk when that's not really what he wants to do. So I have to step back and kind of realize that, okay, this is not what he needs, this is not what he wants, and kind of respecting that. So I don't know, I would just say, like, pay attention to your animals and reciprocate their love that they give us. So,
and they'll do the same. Yeah, that's a great message. Thank you for sharing that. Well, maybe as we'll start wrapping up here, I'll just mention, and maybe this is a good segue to the end, we have a last comment that says that their friend's dog continues to join us for Zoom exercises, including yoga. And they think that he likes that my friend, his human, is spending more time on the floor at his level.
I love that.
So there you go, right? So maybe we're getting down to their level, but all of a sudden we realize maybe that's the level that we like the most. um, connection with our friends, our non-human animal friends, and our other friends. I wanted to just close, and my last two words is that the Institute has some other great learning events coming up. Probably the best way to be aware of those is to monitor our Facebook page at the Institute for Human Animal Connection. On May 6th, we have a webinar with Amanda Arrington from the Humane Society of the United States. Pets for Life. So Amani decided to go see if there's anything that she can get down in the kitchen.
More cookies.
Yep, she knows I'm predisposed. So we have a webinar series that'll be coming up through the whole month of May. Starts on May 6th, and it'll be focused on the Pets for Life concept, which is a very interesting and important framework for supporting the health and well-being of entire communities. As Isha was talking about, kind of the concept of holistic or whole health is recognized in this program by the fact that when we improve animal health, we also see metrics in human health improved as well. And so come join us for that. We hope that you'll get to know the Institute. Many of you are already good friends of the Institute. So I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you're all staying healthy and well. And we'll say our goodbyes. Anything else?
I guess I should say, just find us at Go Fetch Wellness anything. And if you find another Go Fetch Wellness, let me know and I'll send them a letter. But Go Fetch Wellness, Facebook, Instagram. I love to hear from people. Please include a picture of your lovely companion, your pet at home, and in any story you want to share with me, and any part you want to play in what we're doing, because it's not just about Earl and I. It's about you. It's about your relationship with your animal. We share our message so others can share theirs. So thanks so much for I always learn something when I'm in the presence of those at the Institute. So it's just a really it's really I really appreciate it. So thanks for including us. And Earl his head is just sitting on my leg. He doesn't understand that I'd like him to come up here for the shot, but he's wagging his tail, very happy with very hot breath right now.
It's good to have you, Jeff. Good to see you. Stay well. You and Earl are doing incredible work. Isha, thank you so much for your joining us and telling us about the important work you're doing and will continue to be doing. And thanks everyone for joining in. So say good night.
Bye.
Bye. There it is. There you are. Okay. Good job.